Hi, my name is Jennifer Claro, and I work as the director at the Westford Senior Center. And this morning I'm joined with Alison Christopher, our town social worker, and Annette Cerullo, who's our outreach coordinator. We are looking to share with you about various social service programs that would be helpful to individuals 60 and over, as well as to others in the Westford community. We're going to get started talking a little bit about fuel assistance, and both Annette and Alison are very familiar with fuel assistance. And I was just wondering, Alison, if you could just tell us a little bit about what fuel assistance is.
Sure. Fuel assistance is a federally funded program that is actually called the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And the purpose is to assist families who have qualifying low income within their household to afford to heat in the winter by providing subsidies.
Could you explain to me what is considered a heating source when you're talking about fuel assistance? Is that just...
It really can be any heating source that someone uses. It could be natural gas, propane, electric heat, oil, any type of heat is eligible as long as the person or the household is responsible for paying for it.
Okay. So if I was to call Annette and I was interested in applying for fuel assistance, never applied before, would that be the first step? Would I make an appointment? Do I need to fill out an application?
Sure. So if you were to call the senior center and get either Annette or myself on the phone, we would typically do a quick set of questions with you about your household income just to make sure that it sounds like you're within the qualifying range, which is to be under 60% of the state median income. And then we would give you a list of documents that you would need in order to file the application. And once those documents are collected, we can either give you the list of them over the phone or mail out a list of the documents, and then someone would collect the documents and Annette or I would schedule an appointment to do an intake application. There are some people who it's more convenient or they prefer to do their application at Community Teamwork in Lowell. Sometimes people who work in Lowell find it more convenient to do their application there, but we are a satellite intake site for Community Teamwork, which is the primary agency in charge of fuel assistance for the Westford area.
So if I'm a non-Westford resident, it would behoove me to call CTI or Community Teamwork to make an application?
Yes, if you're a non-Westford resident, you could go through CTI, or depending upon what area you live in, you might have to use a different area agency. Every town has its own agency, but Community Teamwork would be able to tell someone which agency they should call if they're in the wrong place.
So with the senior center typically catering to adults over the age of 60, if I'm a single mother and I'm 42, could I call the Cameron Senior Center and receive some type of guidance, or could you help me with the application if I wasn't 60?
Absolutely. We help families of any age in town as long as it's a Westford resident. We can do the applications for both seniors and non-senior households.
And again, it's kind of geared towards income.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have my older son who's 20, lives with me, and he is working, would he also need to make an application, or just I?
So that's one of the trickiest things I think about fuel assistance, is just understanding who is included in the household gross income. But really what is required is that the head of the household, be the applicant, and that is typically the person who is responsible for the fuel bill. And then any other adult living in the household, so any other person over 18 who lives there, whether it be someone renting a room, someone living there and not paying any housing costs, anyone who lives in the household must declare their income. And if people don't have any income, there are forms that can be filed to attest to that as well. But any adult living there has to be listed on the application and be accounted for.
Okay. So if I'm not a homeowner and I don't live in income-based housing, would I still be able to qualify for fuel assistance?
Renters can qualify for fuel assistance. Homeowners can qualify as long as you know, they're in the correct income category and need funding for winter heat. They can apply. If someone is in housing where they pay less than 30% of their income and the heat is included, those people do not typically qualify. And that's like people who are in our town senior subsidized housing. But most other renters do qualify.
Okay. Now, if I'm non-English speaking, do you have applications, or how does one apply, or would I even qualify for fuel assistance?
Yeah, absolutely. People with other language needs can qualify. Depending upon the degree of English speaking, we would probably talk with someone about whether there's a staff member at Community Teamwork who might speak the language well and be able to do the application. But if it's someone who could come to us and we could get a family member to translate or get someone else who was able to translate. Sometimes we have volunteers who come into the senior center that are willing to provide assistance with interpreting different documents, and there are documents in other languages as well.
Oh, great. Okay, so if I'm a student in college and I'm living on my own, would I as well be able to qualify for fuel assistance?
If as a student, if you're renting and renting a place to live and need to pay for heat, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. It's pretty much based on income. So if a single person household, I believe it's around $32,000 a year. If they make less than $32,000 a year, then they are eligible to apply. And for a couple, I believe it's $43,000. That's a good guideline for people to know,
Yeah, it changes very slightly each year. It may have gone up closer to 33,000 this winter, but if people are within that range, and I think we're going to be having the numbers available for folks, but if you feel like you're very close to that range and you're looking at your gross income, not your net income, but your gross income, I think it's always worth applying if you feel like you're close, because hopefully you could get it.
And we've seen people get anywhere from $400 to $800 a year credit on their heating bill. So the electric company gets a credit, National Grid or your oil company, they will then give the money to that company, and then you have a credit. So that's typically the range I've seen is anywhere from $400 to $800 a year.
So it sounds like from what you're saying that if I was able to qualify for fuel assistance and my application was complete, I wouldn't personally receive a check.
No.
Can you tell me a little bit how about if I have a cutoff notice and I've never made application for fuel assistance? How quickly does this process work?
With Community Teamwork, they are committed to getting people in very quickly who are in an emergency situation with a shut-off notice. If it's someone who appears that they're going to qualify for fuel assistance, we want to do everything we can to get that application in and get them approved emergently so as not to have their heat shut off. So they will ask us, or the individual can do it themselves, to bring proof of having a shut-off notice into them, and they will get the intake done. And I believe that they are able to get it pushed through in 24 to 48 hours. So I would always encourage anyone who's getting close to that point, or certainly anyone who's received a shut-off notice or doesn't feel that they're going to have the funding to pay for their next oil delivery and therefore won't be able to have oil delivered, that, get to one of our offices as soon as possible, make an appointment, and get an application in.
Well, since you're both, so used to working with financial hardship situations, if I have applied for fuel assistance and I can maybe only receive $300 in assistance, and my bill is like $825, and I just don't have the money, is there any resources or any agencies that you could suggest that maybe I could talk to that could possibly help with?
Yeah, so the Salvation Army has the Good Neighbor Energy Fund that has higher income guidelines than the federal fuel assistance guidelines. So that program is really meant to help people that are over these guidelines and therefore wouldn't qualify but are having a short-term financial hardship and need some assistance. So I have had success with sending people to the Lowell office of Salvation Army to make an appointment and get assistance through their fuel assistance program. And the Joe for Oil program that usually opens midwinter is another program that people can often get one delivery of oil over the course of the year. That's really just an oil-based program as opposed to other energy sources. But there are other programs out there, and then if we run out of those options and someone is still unable to afford to heat their house, we might help them to look at charitable options in the community, emergency funds that we have access to or knowledge of. So it always helps to call us so that Annette or I could assess what possibilities there are for any given situation and try to come up with a game plan.
Well, it's comforting to know how knowledgeable you both are and experienced you are with being able to help with fuel assistance. And I know we're going to talk about some other programs as well, but just to follow up, since the Senior Center works so much with individuals with varying physical, sometimes limitations, if I can't get in to do an application for fuel assistance, is there any possibility that you could come out to my home and help with completing this application?
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, excuse me. We do a lot of home visits, Allison and I. That is something that I think we really pride ourselves on. I know some other towns don't do a lot of home visits, but that is something that we definitely do. A big part of my job is going out into the community. People just have to simply call and we'll talk about it on the phone, and I'll make an appointment and go out to their home. I wear my little badge so people know that when I come out I have my Town of Westford identification. Yeah, I'll bring the application with me, and it takes about an hour to do it all and get their documents that support their income and support their expenses, bring it back to the office and copy everything. I bring all their originals back to them, and then we mail it off, and they should hear within a couple of weeks from CTI. So it's a pretty smooth process for the fuel assistance. It tends to go really well. It's a really well-run organization. So.
Well, and I know that you all also have to go through periodic training just to stay current with any changes in this federal program.
Yep.
But it seems like it's great to know that there's help for heating assistance going into the winter. And I was just wondering, I know the SNAP program. Could you talk a little bit about the SNAP program?
Sure. A big part of what Alison and I do is we do a lot of application assistance with folks. In the SNAP program, so like fuel assistance, SNAP is also a federally funded program based on poverty levels of income. And SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It used to be the former food stamps. People still call it food stamps. But it's now called SNAP to try to help that image. And it's really a very similar process. For people under 60, it's a several-page application. For folks over 60, it's just a simple 2-page application. We have those in the office. So again, people can come into the office and we can do it, or we can go up to their homes and do it. It's something we can do online also. Same kind of thing, they have to identify their income, they have to identify major expenses, rent, mortgage, utility costs. send it in, and this goes to the Department of Transitional Assistance, DTA in Lowell, unlike CTI in Lowell. It's a different agency, so Department of Transitional Assistance. And then we get back information if they need more documents or not, send those back out, and then people that get a benefit, and I've seen people get anywhere from $16 a month to $200 a month for groceries. They instead of getting stamps, they get like a little, it looks like a debit card, like a little credit card. And that credit card is called an EBT card, an electronic benefits transfer card. And they would go to the market. If they were approved for $80 a month, they'd go to the market, they put the things on the conveyor belt, it comes to $55, they swipe their card, they have a PIN number, the $55 gets minused from the $80, and now their card has a balance of $25 that will carry over. If they spend over that, then they have to give the difference in cash or a check. So it's, again, another benefit that people can qualify for that are low income.
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, you spoke about $16 a month, and I'm just wondering if it's really worth my time to apply for $16. Do you have to do any other follow-up reporting back if you receive $16 a month? Because I'm just trying to figure out if this is really something I really want to do.
Right. Most of the people that get the really low benefit tend to already be in housing, and so they're getting a lot of benefits already by only paying a third of their income for rent. So, so they're already, you know, they're not paying real estate taxes, they're not paying for utilities, so they already get those benefits. But a lot of people will say that they find it helpful even just to, you know, they let it accrue for a couple of months. We do have to do SNAP every 2 years. It's a renewal process every 2 years, unlike fuel is every year. Fuel has to be renewed every year, but SNAP is every 2 years. And if people really struggle, if they're still having a tough time, they can use our food pantry. We have a food pantry that they can come and do, you know, once or twice a month and use our food to supplement that food. So we have, over the summertime, we have gaining grounds. In the summertime, we have local farmers donate a lot of produce and food. So I tell all my folks that are on SNAP about the, you know, the groceries that come in and to help supplement.
And you're right. The Gaining Grounds program in the summer is really quite unique. You know, to see that much abundant, organic, freshly grown produce for individuals just to come in and take. That's typically when would we look for Gaining Grounds to come back to the center? Is that typically?
Is it May or June or?
I think it ends up being closer to July once they end up really starting. Maybe a little bit toward the end of June, but I think it just
when the vegetables grow.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what they're getting each season and when it starts, and as well as how long it goes into the fall when they're getting their squash,
carrots, and potatoes,
and fall things. So. It is a great option to have, though. And Annette, as you were mentioning the renewal type of applications, I think the other thing that might be helpful for people to know is that we are required to do the initial fuel application with people the first time they're applying. We are not required to do the SNAP application for people the first time they're applying. Many people choose to apply on their own, either online or with an application, which is fine. But anyone who needs assistance with renewal applications, I have people who are in the younger group who actually need to renew their SNAP more frequently. Sometimes it's every 6 months, and they bring it in to me each time just to make sure that they're doing it correctly. So we're always here for people to do renewal applications, even though it's not required for either fuel or SNAP to get assistance doing those renewals. You know, we're available to help people because the paperwork can be cumbersome and kind of confusing and overwhelming for people.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, I've also heard experiences where sometimes an individual will have received too much money on their EBT card, and then it comes back. What happens in that situation if, you know, if I was happened to receive a larger allocation than I had before, but I just assumed that that's what I'm supposed to receive, so that's what I use. Would I be penalized? Would I have to pay that back, or does that happen very often?
No, I've not heard that, yeah. There's often people who, I have one woman who gets about $120 a month, and that is the average actually for people to know, is it's $120 a month is the average benefit. She may only use $80 a month, and so it keeps carrying over. And I think they reassess on their end after a year. If they see that she's only averaging $80 a month, then they'll adjust it for the following year, you know, rather than, but yeah, she could have quite a buildup by the end of the year if she's not using it at all, so.
So I really shouldn't be afraid of making an application for this type of program, you know. Okay, well that's good to know. That's good. And you know, I know coming into the new year, there's a lot of, Westford offers a lot of exemption programs. And I was just wondering if you could share with me a little bit about let's just start with the exemption for the blind. Is there any special qualifications?
Okay, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the tax exemptions, and maybe Alison could talk about TRED. When people are experiencing financial hardship, which we often see with seniors because, you know, they're no longer getting, you know, an increase in work wages, they're just collecting Social Security, which many of us know didn't go up this year. But their expenses go up, their real estate taxes go up, and their groceries go up, and their utilities go up. These kind of things can help offset. So, you know, the fuel assistance, the SNAP, and there's 3 key tax exemptions in town. So there's the one for the blind, there's one for if they're over 70, and there's one if they're widowed. And these all come through the town hall, through the town assessor's office. People should work on them between January and March. They're due by the end of March. And they will get $1,000 off of their real estate taxes if they meet the qualifications. They're all a little bit different. Basically, it's like over 65 for some of them and over 70 for some of them. There's some income and some asset stipulations with them, but Mary Garland up at the assessor's office can clearly explain that to the folks. Or if they get the applications and, as Alison said, they want assistance with them because they can be cumbersome. I do a lot of those with folks in their home, and so they could go to the town hall, ask for the blind application. And that one I don't believe you need to have, there's no income qualifications for that one. But there is for the widowed and the over 70 one. And they can simply get the applications and we can help them fill them out. They can get them back to town hall by April 1st, and then $1,000 will be taken off their real estate taxes.
Well, you know, and I know yesterday you provided me with just a copy of this little handbook that can be picked up at the tax assessor's office, and you know, it was just really interesting to see how many programs are available for exemptions.
Veterans, the blind, the widowed,
right.
Yep, over 70.
And I was just amazed.
Yep.
There's just like 5 or 6 programs specifically for veterans. So
oh, and the CPA one too. That's
right.
another one we do a lot. Is people may be aware the Community Preservation Act back, I think it was in the early 2000s, that the town voted in that 3% surcharge could be added to everyone's real estate tax bill, and that 3% surcharge is out there for preserving historic buildings, purchasing conservation land.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, affordable housing.
Right.
So it helps support some of those programs in town, but anybody that's a senior can also apply to have that CPA exemption taken off their real estate tax bill. So every little bit helps.
Right.
And Alison can tell you a little bit about TRED too, which is a tax relief program.
Yeah, TRED is a great program because it really allows a little bit of flexibility for people who may not meet the strictest guidelines that are set out by the assessor's office for an income guideline or an asset guideline, but who are needing assistance because perhaps they have very high medical expenses or other expenses and their income is not high enough to support those kinds of expenses. So TRED is short for tax relief for the elderly and disabled, and people need to be either elderly or to have a state recognized disability and be on disability. But if they have that, then the requirement is that they submit an application, that they share their income and expense information, and then there is a TRED committee that reviews each of the applications, including any special circumstances that people are in. And they're able to allocate awards based on need, based on the need that's presented on each application. Not everyone qualifies, but the committee does have some flexibility in terms of how they make those awards. The TRED program is funded all by donations, so no town monies are used. It's donations by individuals and businesses. And so the awards are dependent on what's in the fund each year.
Wow.
But it's another program that people can look at applying for if they need additional real estate tax relief. They do need to be the homeowner and living in the home in order to qualify. And then Tax Work is the senior tax work-off program where seniors volunteer in town departments in order to get $1,000 taken off of their real estate tax bill at the end of their work time. So both of those programs are kind of administered through the senior center taking the applications, and I oversee the process for those for the committee before they do their committee meeting for TRED, and for Tax Work before the workers' hours are submitted to the payroll department to get paid for those hours.
I know, just the other day I was just walking through the senior center, and there was a lady that just stopped, and she was just sharing her frustration. She had just picked up food from the food pantry, and she had just taken her car to do an inspection, and it didn't pass the inspection because there was problems with the tire. And so it's really nice to know about the TRED program, because that could be a possible financial resource that could help her get her car fixed so she could get to the food pantry and to just take care of her most basic needs. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know,
I always say to seniors that call and ask for the help that they're smart to do it, because between TRED, if you get $500, if you get $1,000 from being over 70 or widowed, and then some fuel assistance, they could be saving about $2,000 a year on their expenses, which can go to other things. So it's a lot to keep track of, but people should just keep in mind, October, do your TRED application. November, do your fuel assistance. January, February, March, do your tax exemptions through the town hall or through us. And you kind of get into a system. So, and we can do it in the office, or we can do it at home. So.
well, I really appreciate working with you and Allison, and thank you for what you do to help people here in the Westford community. Thanks.
It's very enjoyable to do.
Yeah, feel blessed. So.
Thank you. Thank you for watching our program today, and we appreciate the Westford CAT for allowing us to share with you the programs and services that are here in the Westford community. And feel free to call the Cameron Senior Center if we can ever be of any assistance to you.